Amelia. So me and Randy are taking over, or I should say, Randy and I are taking over the Amelia.
Amelia, does she know that we took over?
We're hijacking it. She's
Did we
traveling.
hijack her show?
She's traveling, so we are taking over for her. So we have a phenomenal guest for you that we'll bring on in just a moment. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you for being here. For those of you who are listening and watching across social media platforms, thank you for joining us. And if anybody's interested that's here on, and we're also streaming on Clubhouse, of course. Anybody that's on Clubhouse that would like to see and be engaged with us visually, you can also go into LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and find us there. So thank you everyone for joining us and welcome. Of course, this is, and thank you, David Meltzer, for just another fabulous teaching and lesson on the power of questions. So great to ask the right questions, open-ended questions as well. So thank you for that. Always love listening to you. So again, thank you everyone for being here on Clubhouse in the Breakfast with Champions. For those who were just joining us, or hopefully you've been here with us the whole time, we'd love, of course, for you both here on Clubhouse and on social media. Please do share this video as we are going to be interviewing a phenomenal guest, Dr. Karen Walker, as we're talking about leadership and one of her books, Leading by My Ponytail, which is really great. She's got a couple of other great titles as well that we're going to get into. And we're going to just be talking about human behavior, leadership, and everything else. So invite some people into this room, share this video out, because we can indeed change the trajectory of perhaps of your life, of someone else's life, by inviting them into the right conversation, sharing the right information with them. And that's how we can change the world. So I am joined by the one and only none other than Randy Kenneth Jones of Jones and for Good. So Randy, welcome. And we'll be bringing Dr. Karen on momentarily.
You literally just promised them, Tony, we were going to talk about everything.
We are.
1 hour. We have hijacked the show from Amelia for 1 hour. We cannot talk about everything.
Listen, that's 60 minutes. We have a whole bunch of time.
Now I can't hear you. So now I'm stuck. I can't hear you in Clubhouse.
Oh, no. That's weird.
We can't hear you in Clubhouse. Is your mic on?
It is on, actually. Can you hear me now?
He's muted.
I don't know if I muted. Oh, I did mute myself because I was giving way to you. So, okay. With that said, Randy, take over.
Oh, I am so happy. Welcome, everyone. Thank you to Amelia for she obviously knows we did this. Such a treat to be able to come in and host the speakers and the guests that we have every single Friday at 11 o'clock. Really grateful for this. We have this week somebody we've actually tried to hook this up for a while. Dr. Karen Walker. We have Dr. Karen Walker joining us. Now, she is broadcasting live from her car in Washington, D.C., or the Maryland suburbs or wherever. I have to say, it is kind of funny. If you can go to Randall Kenneth Jones, Randall K. Jones on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Tony's pages, Amelia's pages. Are we on Amelia's pages too, Tony?
We are on Amelia's pages. You can go to
if
YouTube.
you want to listen in Clubhouse or watch or whatever, or watch us, we do a somewhat different show. There's lots of interesting facial expressions in the stream that you don't get to see or on Clubhouse. So
yeah,
and for those people who are actually watching the stream, you can actually comment and interact with us on the stream on your social media platforms and ask questions there as well. Dr. Karen Walker, how are you?
Thank you. Good. Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to know. I'm going to talk more about who you are. Do you get sick of the Will and Grace thing? You've got to get sick of the Karen Walker Will and Grace thing.
I love that show, Will and Grace. So it's funny when people, they hear my name and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Will and Grace."
I mean, because I love Megan Mullally in Will and Grace as Karen Walker.
Me
so
too.
I heard that. That's all I thought about. But whereas she has one personality type, you're very different from Karen Walker and Will and Grace. Dr. Karen Walker you're an expert in organizational psychology. You're an author. We want to talk about your 3 book titles later. And an advocate for diversity and change. You have this educational background tells me a PhD in industrial organizational psychology, a master's degree in human behavior, and a bachelor's degree in communications. You are retired from the U.S. Marine Corps. You have an extensive background in government and corporate industries as well as academia. So maybe, Tony, I was wrong. With that background, maybe we can talk about everything.
We can listen. She's an all around woman, right?
Yeah, it sounds like there's nothing she's not qualified to talk about.
And listen, not only I got to just say, first of all, thank you for your service, and I've got to say, not only was she in the military, she was in the Marines.
Oh yeah.
That's next
Hardcore.
level. So,
Yeah.
and by the way, I've got to say that we're also joined by Tara Murney, of course, and by Charleston Gaines as well, that are here on screen with us. And again, I'll just remind everyone, if you want to follow along and watch, you can just look me up, Tony Rodriguez, with an S on Facebook and also on YouTube, hashtag Get Up and Grow, like you see on my name here, and you can follow along. So, with that, back to you, Randy.
Dr. Walker. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want you to talk a bit more about what you do and give your own introduction of you, but I am going to put this in the framework of a question because I'm fascinated. How did your time in the military shape this work? So as you talk
Sure.
about really what it is you do with organizations and with individuals, I really want to hear how the military shaped this. I'm fascinated by that. I'm absolutely fascinated by that background.
Sure. No, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it. And for those that are able to watch, and you know that I'm in the car, but as a veteran, we take our healthcare very seriously. And if you have an appointment at the VA, it's like 4 months out sometimes that you've scheduled it, and so that's why I'm in my car, because I also have an appointment at the VA today, and so I could not reschedule that. So that's a story about our veterans and some of the things that we have to do. But I did 21 years in the Marine Corps, and when you say Marine Corps, Marines, we like to growl and grunt. So our hoorah and all that. We have our own language. Um, so Marines definitely are a different breed from the rest, as Tony alluded to. But I did 21 years in the Marine Corps and 3 tours in Iraq successfully. And I did active duty time and reserve time. So, what I learned from that is when I transitioned from active duty to reserves, I was told by everyone, oh, you won't have any problems finding a job. Because at that point, I had my PhD, as you mentioned, in industrial organizational psychology and 3 tours in Iraq. And everyone said, you'll go out there, you'll find a great job. So, I, struggled for about a year being unemployed, with depression, just really trying to find my way and identity outside of the military. And I think I can relate a lot to veterans that have that experience transitioning from the military. Until I realized you have to not only look for your skill sets, but your passion in life once you kind of transition to a new space. And so that's a lot of the focus that I do now in my work with not just organizations, but people, and not just veterans, but people everywhere. Is really looking at your skill sets and also combining that with your passion to build that confidence to make that next step in your life. So I think that's really helped me. The military has helped me to see that in myself and then for others as well.
What advice do you? Well, you talk about this in your books, and you talk about being a woman in a male-dominated industry, if you
Right.
will, which certainly you have been in that. What advice do you have for women entering a male-dominated industry?
Sure, absolutely. So a lot of not just as a female, Marine officer, but also as a researcher. I've done quite a bit in this area, and I've narrowed it down to kind of 4 things, which is an acronym called FSET, which is femininity, self-efficacy, emotional intelligence, and teamwork. And women actually have great skill sets in these areas to help them in male dominated industries. So when I say femininity, it's not that you're a female or male and use that, it's more so understanding that you have to lead from where you are. And as women, you can't lead like a man, right? I mean, you have to lead in your own way. and find out what that is. And I think as a Marine, I would watch other Marines and think like, oh, I can't um, be myself, right? I can't show that I can smile and I can laugh and I can.
Did we lose you? Did we lose her?
Yep. Can you still hear me?
You're back. Yay. Now you're gone again.
There are like the do not disturbs, I think, probably, right?
Yeah, the little icon in the bottom right, the
Okay.
little microphone icon. You need to make sure that that does not have the circle with the line through it, because if you lose you again, Tara has to sing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Tara will have to sing a little number,
Yeah,
and
I
Tony
think
will have to actually he'll have to do stand up after that. So
I can do stand up. You don't want to hear me
right.
sing.
stand up, sitting down, stand up, sitting down. So we're back.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. So I was trying to make sure I have like a do not disturb. So can you still hear me now?
We are good. We can hear you
Okay,
now.
good. All right. So I was saying that women being able to lead in their own way, right? So I mean, I can be myself, and that makes me a better leader because I'm authentic. So when people can relate to me, then sometimes you have to be vulnerable in your own way. That comes out too. But people will want to connect with you as a leader if you're leading by who you are, not being an imposter, right? Being trying to be someone that you're not. The S for self-efficacy is believing in the belief in your ability to succeed, your ability to do things. So you have to be good at your job, whatever it is, and you have to believe that you can do it. So that's a big part also for women, knowing that you're good at your job and believing that, so that you're able to succeed when you're in a male-dominated industry, right? I mean, men naturally have this confidence that they will take on a job even if they don't have the skill sets. And women, we could have like double the skills and we'll still be like, oh, I think I need another degree in that. But men will be like, I could do that, and they'll kind of find their way. But women just, as far as self-efficacy goes, just believing in your worth. Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a quote that I often share that says there are people out there less qualified than you doing what it is that you want to do simply because they believe they could.
Exactly.
Right. So
And
believe in
Tony,
yourself.
unless I'm curious, Tony's very quiet in my clubhouse. Is Tony very quiet for other people?
He's very far away.
Oh,
Maybe
And
just
Tony
me.
is not
let me get a little
quiet
closer
boy.
to my
Tony
mic.
is
How's
a
that?
loud, boisterous man
Is that better?
who can project, and we've lost you completely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of weird. Can you hear me now?
No sound.
Yeah, we've
Oh
lost
well,
you.
perhaps I should have
Oh, that's better.
unmuted.
Yay!
Perhaps I should have unmuted when I start to speak.
There you are. I can hear
So,
you.
did you guys hear what I said?
Right, we heard you.
Okay,
Heard your
great.
comment. That's great. Thank you. And then the E in FSET is emotional intelligence, and women tend to have a skill set here that comes more naturally. But emotional intelligence has two aspects to it. Most people know about the awareness part, which is your awareness of your emotions, right, in yourself and in others. And women can naturally key in on that. Pretty quickly. But there's also another component to it, which is the management of those emotions and skill sets. So, and that's something we can all work on. But so emotional intelligence is key. And the last aspect of FSET is teamwork, which is about the collaborative aspect that women bring to the workforce or any organization. And that's really helpful in getting people kind of to come together and using we language, right? So not taking credit for everything that's involved, but getting people involved and saying, we can do this. And um, that type of language is powerful, and that type of leadership is that transformative leadership styles that a lot of women can bring to the table. So
Can I give you a part B
sure.
on this? And I'm going to give you some background. I'm really curious because I think we could do a whole show on this. I love all the women's empowerment opportunities that are out there. There are books there. We talked this morning about the G100. There are so many organizations. There's so much. And I love women lifting women up. What I've always been concerned about is the lack of resources and books and organizations to make men better men.
Yeah.
I've still not seen it, and I tell you who pointed that out to me was my friend Joanne Lamarca, who retired recently as executive producer of Hoda and Jenna, a very female-focused show. But here she said to me, "I'm raising a teenage son. Where do I go to make my boy a better man?"
Yeah, I
And it
love
is
that.
a challenge. So I'm gonna, with that, because that's something that frustrates me. And the gentlemen who are here and participating, especially in the G100 and stuff, I think you probably understand what I'm saying. But what advice do you have for men to be more welcoming, to be more accepting a woman into their male dominated industry? What can men do to be more welcome and open to that woman and allowing them to flourish in that environment?
Sure. I mean, I could take that a lot of different ways, but I think number one is being, an advocate and an ally for women all around. As a woman officer in the Marines, it was less than 6% of us. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges is finding those advocates and allies. And really, it's kind of a brother that will stand there and say, like, I have full confidence in this person that they can do it just like, me. And sometimes, that's enough. And I think as a leadership, I think is all encompassing. It's not male or female. And if you're wanting to bring more, women on board, I think it's about advocating the fact that they have amazing strengths and skills that you also believe in, right? So I think I would give that kind of advice, and also just strengthening the networks to do that, because men seem to naturally network very well, and women, we're still coming around to that, what that means, that we don't have to be each other's competition, but we can be each other's advocates. And really, there's a lot of work out there to be done, and we're not taking it away from each other, but we're actually helping each other.
Yeah, and
Do you,
Randy,
Tony, go ahead.
that was such a good question that you posed, Randy, because in today's world, one of the things that's happening is, and this is a topic, a whole side topic for another conversation.
We could literally do a whole show. And,
Yeah.
and I know I've not talked about it before, but it is a pet peeve of mine.
No, it is because, and in today's culture, we need to uplift women because in my humble opinion, I think that women are much better at multitasking if there is such a thing. Which there's an argument that multitasking isn't a thing, but certainly if women are much better at multitasking than men, and I think that we need more women in leadership. We need more women because. Listen, we may be stronger physically, but I think that many women are stronger mentally, right? Emotionally, certainly. But one of the things that's happening with men in society, and to your point, your friend was asking, she's raising a teenage son. It's important to instill positive masculine values and traits in our young men and boys because we are pulling that away from them because we're saying that toxic masculinity and all this other BS, these BS terms. And I can get into that. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
If indeed you're dealing with someone that's got toxic masculinity, you may indeed want to make sure that you're just not dealing with a blank hole, right? Because the reality of it is, I think that's one of the big challenges. Then when you do that, then it's almost like men are competing with women more so than if they're certain in themselves and they own who they are. So anyway, a whole nother conversation, but.
Well, a note on that for you, Tony, and also Randy, your friend. So I adopted my son when he was 9, and I was very much searching for things to, at the time as a single mom raising a son, and how can I kind of instill some of this in him, of, um, you know, being a good man, right? I mean, how am I going to do that? And so, some of the most helpful things for me was to learn that, the things I say around him really impact him greatly in my view of men. So, I would make comments like, wow, that man over there, he's very, strong, or he's very polite, or he's, you know, and when my son would hear me say that, then I would see him try and do like those same things, right? He wants to impress me because he thinks that's what, should be. So, I mean, it's likewise if you're saying only negative things, then, your children pick up on, that energy. So it's just, they're very be helpful in shaping what a good man kind of would attribute, and the same for women as well. But leadership, like I said, is all in encompassing, and I think there are behaviors that are helpful that make a good leader or a good boss, that go across gender.
I think you brought up something by accident, which the fact that you adopted at 9, a 9-year
Yeah,
old.
sure.
Bravo. Thank
Yes.
Sure.
you.
Thank you for that.
Amazing. And you do understand what I'm talking about insofar as trying to, where are the role models? But we are role models. As they say, children will listen. So now you've introduced something into my head that I'm trying to craft into a question. You
Sure.
adopted a child who was not fully formed, but was formed,
Right.
had behaviors, had ideas, had thoughts, had a belief system developing already. Whether that be good or bad, I don't know.
Mm.
So you had to address that. This person, he's come to me with this specific set of characteristics or traits, and you have to work with them and mold them and improve them. That's what you do professionally as well.
Right. Yeah.
So
Don't
I
like
just
to
want
do
to
it.
know, how did it differ from molding your son's view of the world to molding a professional's view of their world with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of your own self. So I think having to adopting my son at an older age, he did come to me with already some ideas and beliefs that were formed, from his birth family, from his foster family, and then coming to me. And he thought, certain, uh, cliches that he had heard, or stereotypes he had heard and seen. And I tried my best to kind of bring him around people that broke those stereotypes for him. And it was not always easy, because sometimes he would just say what was the first thing on his mind, and people that didn't know him would kind of be like, what in the world, right? But it's an education process for, I think, everybody involved, to be able to learn more about adoption, learn on their end, and then also, for him to learn more about different cultures, and different environments. So I think it's about asking curious questions, and not, being judgmental, but actually being open to learning.
Well, is this a variation of leading by example?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I think every day with your kids is leading by example. Sometimes more difficult than others.
one thing I've noticed I've never written a management book, and I'm not gonna because nobody's gonna read it. But I have said that a lot of the skills that I used as a parent, I have taken into the business world as well. And I remember I was very lucky. I've interviewed Barbara Corcoran before, and I'm going to paraphrase this, but I remember her talking about she was raised like one of 9 in like a 2-bedroom apartment or something like that. It was crazy. And
Mm.
how her mom would be like, no nonsense, like, okay, the kids are fighting. I'm going to put you in a room. You all figure it out. Don't come out till you've solved it. And I just think that's kind of fascinating, the approach that her mother took. So that lead
Sure.
by example thing is a very powerful tool, and you take that into your professional world.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I think working with many different government agencies and, corporate uh, areas as well, and throughout academia, it's one thing they all have in common, whether it's the dysfunction or high productivity, is the people, and you can't get away from that. And I think that's the aspect that I really enjoy is learning about the different relationships and dynamics with people. And, we've seen quite a drastic change over the last 2 years, I would say, in how people have had to interact with each other and engage.
I'm curious, why did you pursue this field? I'm
Oh,
always I'm curious. I do a lot of medical writing. I always talk to doctors. Why did you specialize in that? Why on earth would you want to be a gastroenterologist? I'm never in a million years going to
yeah.
understand why you would choose this line of work. I don't get it. But why did you choose this? Why did you choose? It just, to me, it's an interesting combination, and I'm missing the connection between military and the Marine Corps and leadership development.
Sure. Well, I mean, as a Marine officer, your whole, I think, career is about leading Marines. I mean,
Hmm.
that's your greatest honor, your greatest privilege is to lead Marines. And, I think retiring from the Marine Corps and then also doing now my work with organizational psychology is being able to work within the HR kind of pipeline from beginning to end and seeing how they bring people on, whether it's recruitment and hiring to the leadership development aspect of building leaders within an organization, and then also measuring kind of the climate and culture within an organization, and then how do they work on retention, how do they keep people from leaving an organization. And that whole aspect, I think, really speaks to me, as far as a leader. So that's been my interest. And then also, human behavior was my master's. So I think that really drove it home. And then organizational psychology is kind of like the business psychology version.
So I got a question here from Charleston. Now, am I saying that right? Nod your head if I'm saying Charleston right. It's not anything tricky or different. Who said, ask Randy, can you ask the difference between leading Marines and who she leads now? And I'm going to throw the child into the mix on that. So I'm going to really say, so what is the difference between the Marines, the professionals in the industries you support, and then let's throw the kid in there. What's the
Okay,
difference?
sure. Well, for my Marines out there, they'll understand. I think in the Marines, you used to be able to do the knife hand approach. But that's where it's like how you can talk and how you express yourself, and that's the thing they say is the knife hand, right? So you're not touching anybody or hurting anybody, but you can be assertive in your own way with this hand. It's the knife hand. Um, and you also have what we call staff NCOs, right? So I would say I could speak softly and carry a big staff NCO, which is like your senior enlisted member, right? Think you can command respect in the Marine Corps, right? You don't demand it, you command it, meaning your presence and your demeanor. And now in my work, I know people that know me well will say, "Oh wow, I saw you go Marine right then." If I'm doing something, because I'm generally very, this is me, this is how I speak, and this is how I engage. But I guess sometimes the Marine will click, but it's just very precise and orderly. With my children, it's I think that doesn't always work. So you just have to do like a lot more, listening, bartering sometimes with your kids, and I think I've learned a lot more of like the behavioral skills with kids, of figuring out exactly what they need in the moment and how I can kind of also enforce the rules, I guess, of the home at the same time. So
I
mixed
found
bag.
something, somebody told me this years ago, and my kids are now 31 and 32, and they don't care about what I say at all. So they have fired me from being a parent. And well, actually, they occasionally throw me a parental bone and they call me for advice on Father's Day. So I feel like I'm important, and
Oh.
I'm being sarcastic. But I had heard that if you talk to your child for 30 minutes on their terms about their topics, about what they're interested in, about their life, and sort of almost let them lead it, that after 30 minutes, they're going to start to really open up. I don't know, but okay, with my kids, that did work. But
Yeah.
I've also seen that work with adults.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's about building rapport, and that goes back to that whole, trust and vulnerability aspect, right? I mean, so people want to know that you're human and they can relate to you, and they try to find a way that they can do that. So, absolutely, leaders can't just sit behind their desk and try and lead. They've got to get out and be with the people, and that's a really big aspect of being able to be approachable. That's really huge.
What's your best advice? Okay, I'm going to paint a little bit more of a picture. I believe a lot of the people in this room are independent consultants. A lot of us work at home. We run small businesses, whether we have one employee or two or three. We are consultants. We're working for ourselves in many cases, a lot, not everyone. What's your best advice for a solopreneur? For
Sure.
those of us who are, I mean, I've talked about this before. I can pick up the phone and call Tara, and I do. And I can pick up the phone and call Tony. So I have my network of people that I can talk to, and I can, if I'm having a bad day, I can dump it out on Tara, and I do. So, but what's your best advice for success for us from a human behavior standpoint?
Sure. Well, two things I would say. I mean, first, I'm big on doing self assessments. Well, assessments in general, because that's the world I live in. So measurement, but doing some type of self assessment for you to understand kind of where you are in this moment as you're stepping out as a solopreneur. To understand kind of whether it's your emotional intelligence or just your basic kind of competencies or skill sets, right? So that you can kind of gauge what where are your kind of pitfalls or where are your blind spots, so that maybe if you do need to bring in extra help in an area, that you can be vulnerable in that and understand that about yourself, right? If you are not that compassionate, then maybe you need to bring somebody in that can do that forward facing with your clients, that you're just not, that's not your expertise, that's not your area. And those are some things you can just, get some, like putting the mirror on yourself is a big deal when you're starting out, to get that in your face moment of like, okay, this is who I am and this is where I'm starting. Let's go. I'd say that I recommend that a lot. And then secondly is a way to set yourself apart from others in the work that you do. So, anytime you're taking on a new client or a new space, is being able to measure that definition of success. And, I'll take that moment as my new book that's coming out is Keeping Score. How
I
the
was going to say,
best.
that was actually my next question.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you're segueing great into your new book, Keeping
Thanks.
Score.
Yeah, Keeping Score, how the best consultants measure impact and success. And so that's exactly what I talk about, and not just, for consultants and coaches, but mainly, if you're in that line of work where you're working with clients or organizations and leadership, but being able to understand how to set yourself apart from others and measuring up front so that you know exactly where you're starting from, so you know how much you've grown or how much you've changed and how much you've impacted. Because a lot of times in those types of settings, people will say, well, I know I'm successful because my client feels better and they're happier. And it's just, in business, feelings don't equate to money, and businesses don't want to pay for feelings. So when you want to measure success and impact, it's best to do that with some type of measurement tool in your line of work. So when you take on a new client, you're able to say, okay, you started out, at kind of ground zero, and now I've moved you to, 30% higher. And numbers actually tell a story, and they're actually able to, tie into the impact and success that you bring to an organization or a person.
When you look at you're talking about looking at yourself in a mirror.
Yeah,
Here's
absolutely.
my problem, and I think a lot of people share this problem. I'm actually fascinated by learning about myself. I think it's fun and interesting. A lot of people are afraid of it, and they don't have the ability to do it. They need they need an Amelia to help guide them through that.
Sure.
You talk about looking in the mirror. If I'm looking in the mirror today, I'm only seeing myself look back, and my coworker's a 66-pound Airedale dog. So, what is your recommendation for those people who have limited contact? And we certainly, even though we've in many ways moved past COVID and all being home, still there's a lot of people left with limited contact. What are the best tools in your mind to help with us looking in that mirror? Is there your book? What other books do you have? What tools do you have to help us understand ourselves?
Sure, of course I'll recommend my books, but I don't say you just have to read mine, but I think most self-reflection tools will be really helpful, and you can meet with somebody one-on-one to go over them, and most everything is virtual now because of what we've gone through the last 2 years. So if you want to continue to be virtual, you can do that, or you can set up something more kind of one-on-one in person. But I think if you're able to do kind of any type of assessment, like I mentioned, they have like the EQI, which is for emotional intelligence. That's usually a good starting point because it measures things from, your stress tolerance, your decision making, these aspects of kind of self awareness that can apply to many different areas of your life. Many people will go towards the Myers Briggs as a general starting point as well, just to get a gleam of kind of, am I introverted, am I extroverted, what type of how this affects my relationships. And then, of course, I mentioned I have the FSET inventory, and that looks specifically at transition spaces in your life. So if you're getting ready to retire, if you're changing jobs, if you're going to school and you don't know what job you want, that's a good place to start as well.
Of course, now we're going to have to say Amelia's Genius Key
Yes,
tool
and
is
the Genius
obviously.
Key is available. It's a great perspective overview and gives you insight into your genius, your
Mhm.
natural genius, and many different areas you can go with that too. And looking for
And I
employment.
wasn't setting that up to be a commercial for Amelia, but that's an
No,
obvious
but
thing to say.
absolutely, yeah.
But then
And
another thing came up. I love it when the conversation just sort of leads sort of naturally. Is all this time alone healthy? I love my Tara time, but Tara still lives in the North Pole. And not quite the North Pole, but she lives in Canada. She's north of me. I love my Terra time, but me and the 66-pound dog, I feel like, is it unhealthy to spend as much time alone? What is the importance in your mind to the balance between alone time, working at home, if we do, or even you can even be within an office and almost set yourself aside. You can go in your office
sure.
and shut the door. Talk to me about the importance of human interaction.
Sure, absolutely. It's very important in terms of, building your relationships. And I think that's why this any type of assessment will help you to kind of see where you are and how your alone time might be affecting other areas of your life that you didn't even know about. Because of course, of all that we've experienced over the last year, at least, everybody's in a different place and everybody's experience has been different. In terms of introverted and extroverted, though, many introverts get their energy from being alone. So that can be helpful. But if that's your only outlet, you still probably do need that human connection. I mean, we naturally do have that hierarchy of needs, which is, kind of belongingness and connectedness is in there. So you will, eventually kind of feel that deprivation from not getting the connectedness. So I think that's something to think about as well, and how you get that is going to be important.
You know what? And Tony, we need to reset this room and tell people where we are and what we're doing. And as Tony does that, I want to open this up to other. We have human behaviorist Amelia every single week. Now we have a different human behavior expert, Dr. Karen Walker, and let's take advantage of this opportunity. Tony, you chime in for a minute here, get us up to speed, and then I want to open the floor.
100%. And listen, and to what you're saying, I'll just add that personal development is so epically important, right? To be self-aware, to know where those gaps are, to know your weaknesses, and yes, to know your strengths. So that the Genius Key assessment that I took, a few months ago is probably one of the best that I've come across, because it really does show you where your
And I
strengths
actually
are.
do really totally agree. And
Yeah.
Again, no commercial. I just agree.
Yeah, it's not a commercial. I've taken the DISC profile, the Myers-Briggs, and I've taken a few others. And just having been in the personal development space for as many years as I have as well, I've had the opportunity to tap into a lot of different ones. And the Genius Key is really one of the great ones as well. Just this has been absolutely great. And again, I want to just honor you again for not only your service, but for taking in and adopting a 9-year-old. That's amazing. And for instilling the leadership skills that you're instilling in him. And I love the fact that you're pointing out the good attributes that you're seeing, because that goes so far, right? So I honor you for that. So thank you for that. So we're going to go ahead and reset this room, and just if you're just joining us, of course, this is the Breakfast with Champions, the largest group on Clubhouse. So we're happy that you're here. If you haven't done so yet, make sure that you're clicking the little greenhouse up on top. That way, you're notified each and every time that we're here. That Breakfast with Champions is here. Always great information being shared across the board. Of course, we're here with Amelia at 9 o'clock in the morning on Eastern Standard Time, as well as 11 o'clock, always with a special guest. And today we're blessed to have Dr. Karen Walker. What we'd love you to do is we'd love everyone to go ahead and share this room. There's a little box at the bottom of the screen with an arrow. Click on that, and that'll share to your Clubhouse hallway, so people actually know where you are, so we can help the algorithm let people know where we are. And of course, ping people in individually. Of course, when you're clicking on their picture, make sure they got the little green light at the bottom. Of course, I'm talking about Clubhouse, and we're also on social media. We're on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you're listening and watching there, by all means, share this video, share this content, so people can not only listen now live, but can also watch the replays afterwards, because Dr. Karen Walker is an impressive human being and sharing so much. So now we'll send it back to Randy so we can take some questions from the audience. And if you're watching on social media, you can always post a question there as well. We'll see it on this end and ask it for you.
Who would like to speak up and ask a question?
Hi, Randy. It's Tara. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually